when the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is the principal advisory body for governments, when it presented the last bit of its big assessment report just a couple of weeks ago, it talked about this atlas of human suffering. Now, this wasn't an atlas of human suffering in the future. This was an atlas of human suffering in the world today. Rich world countries, poor world countries, north, south, whatever you choose to focus on, we've already got a pattern of very significant climate damage to the lives of millions, tens of millions of people. So that's the first thing to hang on to, if you like, which is to realize that this is with us now. It's not just an issue for the future. So how bad is it? What was the warning from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change in this sixth assessment report? And those reports go back way, way back to 1988. They produce these reports every now and then, every 5 or 6 years. And this one was looking at what has been referred to as the safe operating space for humankind. And that means that we can continue to enjoy a stable enough climate to allow us to do all the things we want to do, to grow the food that we need, to be able to source the energy that we require, to use the Earth's natural resources on a sustainable basis, everything that makes humankind's civilization viable. So they've spent a lot of time looking at what the safe operating space for humankind might be, and what is the maximum temperature increase that the planet can experience before the end of the century and still have a safe operating space. Because the temperature is going to increase. It's already increased by nearly 1.2 degrees centigrade since the start of the Industrial Revolution. No surprises there. But how much more of an increase is compatible with a safe operating space? And that's essentially what the sixth assessment report was all about, looking at just how much more heating in these natural systems will we be able to cope with. In essence, what they told us in that report is that it's probably too late to restrict the temperature increase to less than 1.5 degrees centigrade. I can guarantee that some of you listening to this will remember that in Glasgow at the Conference of the Parties, that big international climate conference in Glasgow at the end of last year, you heard endless references to 1.5 degrees centigrade. Keep 1.5 alive. Make sure that the average temperature increase does not exceed 1.5 degrees centigrade by the end of the century. Well, this is a bit of a downer, but the latest report from the scientists tells us that this is pretty much out of scope now. We'd have to do something utterly, unprecedentedly urgent and dramatic to restrict the temperature to less than that. But the rather better news is that if we start getting on with things in the way that we should have been doing for the last 30, 40 years, we can still aim to restrict the temperature increase to below 2 degrees centigrade. Now, I know from past experience that a lot of people, when they hear this sort of story about 1.5 degrees centigrade and 2 degrees centigrade, and they think to themselves, what, just half a degree centigrade? How can that be the difference between a reasonably safe operating space for humankind and an existential threat to our existence? It's ridiculous if you think about how we tweak the thermostat. How can just 0.5 of a degree centigrade make all of this difference? Well, the point is that we're talking about average temperature increases. And these increases will be felt very differently in different parts of the world. And the difference between 1.5 and 2 is dramatically different depending on what part of the world you're looking at and what ecosystem you're looking at. So we know that even at 1.5 degrees centigrade, the world's reefs are going to be really terribly badly affected. At 2 degrees centigrade, most of the world's reefs will die because of the heating of the ocean. So just that little bit tells you just how serious it's going to be. And when I talk about these averages, that is really important because some of the places that are seeing the highest temperature increases at the moment are in the most sensitive areas of planet Earth, in the Arctic and in the Antarctic. In fact, we've already seen at least 2.5 degrees centigrade temperature increase in the Arctic. Not just 1.2, as I was saying, but 2.5. So why is that so important? Well, you know that these two critical biological systems, the Arctic and the Antarctic, are the place where most of the world's ice is stored. And if that increased average temperature accelerates the melting of those reserves of ice, then we are in a lot of trouble.